In this video, we're going to talk about Scrum and how it can be applied to our projects. Scrum is one of many things that falls under the umbrella of Agile. You might have heard of things like extreme programming and Kanban and several of the other options that you see here. The basic idea is let's develop software quickly and responsively instead of the traditional waterfall approach, which is let's write down everything we're going to need to know day one, and then we're going to work on that for months or years and then deliver a finished product that meets what we thought we knew on day one. If a project goes for a long time, we'll find that the needs of the project have changed. And Scrum is a way to be responsive to those changes. Change is something we're always going to have to deal with in projects. The traditional waterfall method, while it worked well in many scenarios, it didn't adapt well to change over a period. With Scrum, we have certain things that we're going to do. We're going to start with the product owner, and in our projects, that's going to be the integration or the business development lead. In bigger projects, that would oftentimes be someone who's not a programmer, but somebody who is knowledgeable in the business. We're also going to have a product backlog. Now, the product backlog is a list of features that we want to implement on our product. Now, the features that you have in software is a trade-off. The traditional software development triangle looks like this. You have time, money, and features on a triangle. Pick any two. You can only pick two. That's the traditional view. Here's my software development triangle. To me, time and money, to a degree, are interchangeable. But I've added quality. And the reason why I've added quality is you can't sacrifice on quality these days. So my software development triangle is time, features, and quality. Pick any two, but one of the two has to be quality. What if one of the two were not quality? What if you focused on time and features? So in other words, a lot of features in a short amount of time. That's the trade-off we're talking about. If you focus on a lot of features in a short amount of time, you'll release a product that does not have quality. And then you're going to spend a lot of time trying to make up for that lack of quality, and you're going to have to win back the customers you've lost. The reason why quality is important these days is that nobody has secrets. If you stay in a hotel, if you go to a restaurant, and you have either a very good or a very bad experience, you're likely to rate that somewhere. If it's software, it will likely be on an app store. If it's a restaurant, it will likely be on one of the many review sites out there, or similar with a hotel. So if you sacrifice on quality, you're likely to get an L-shaped ranking where you have not many 5, 4, 3s, or 2s, but a lot of 1s. And then, to make up for it, you'll release a higher quality product later, and you'll start getting more 5 ratings, and you get what I call a C-shaped rating. You can't get rid of those 1s. So we don't want an L shape, we don't want a C shape. We want an R shape. We want a whole lot of 5s. And that's why I say we can't compromise on quality. So if quality is something that we have to have, and we need to choose between time or features, how do we do it? Well, time is a continuum. And what we're going to plan on doing is a quality job of a select number of features, and that feature list will increase as time increases. And that takes us back to the product backlog. So the product backlog are all of the features we would like to have. Over time, we're going to implement those features. So the time mechanism we're going to use is a sprint. A sprint will typically be 1 week, 2 weeks, or 4 weeks, but we're going to stay consistent. If we have a 1 week sprint, it will always be a 1 week sprint. A 4 week sprint, always a 4 week sprint. Longer than 4 weeks and it just gets too long. So what we're going to do in our sprint planning meeting is we're going to pick off as many stories as we think we can tackle. The product backlog is made of stories. And we're going to tackle them in our sprint. And then we're going to deliver a high-quality, finished piece of work. Next sprint, we're going to pick off more stories, and we're going to take care of those stories, and again, end with a finished piece of work, a high-quality piece of work. Now, how do we know how many stories we can tackle in a sprint? Well, the stories are going to have a ranking of difficulty. It's not a matter of time, it's just relative difficulty. And the difficulty is going to be ranked with Fibonacci numbers. The Fibonacci numbers are 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, and 21. And the way a Fibonacci number works is we add the two numbers behind us, and that gives us our current number. So 3 is the sum of 1 and 2, 5 is the sum of 3 and 2. Now, how are we going to know how difficult a project is? Remember, the Fibonacci number is not a measure of time, it's just relative difficulty. One Scrum team's difficulty, or one Scrum team's 5 is not the same as another Scrum team's 5. It's relative. It's like currency, like pesos. 10 pesos is not the same as $10. $10 is not the same as 10 pounds. It's relative to its context, where it is used. So when we're rating these stories, we're going to sit around and we're going to do something called planning poker. We're going to read off a story, and then we're all going to hold up a card that says what number we think it is. If we disagree, then we'll talk about it until we come to a consensus on what number it should be. At the end of the sprint, we're going to add up the story points that we tackled during that sprint, and that will give us an idea of how much currency we have to spend on story points for the next sprint. Story points will stay constant. If we rated something a 5 today, and we don't get to it for 3 months, it's still going to be a 5 in 3 months. What will change is our velocity. And the velocity is the sum of all the story points that we tackled in that sprint. That velocity number should always increase with every sprint, because we're getting better, we're getting more efficient. And how are we getting more efficient? Well, at the end of each sprint, we have something called a retrospective. Traditionally, in a retrospective, we're going to say what worked well and what didn't work well. Now, I don't like those terms because it tends to lead to finger pointing. And so I do stop, start, continue, which is what are we going to start doing that's going to make us more efficient? Maybe use virtual machines, maybe have a standard virtual machine. What are we going to stop doing that was inefficient? Maybe all of us working on getting our environment set up separately when there was a lot of overhead there that could have been shared. What are we going to continue doing that worked well? Maybe sitting next to each other in an open office environment where we could easily ask questions to each other. So however you do it, stop, start, continue, or what worked well, what didn't work well, we're going to tackle that in the retrospective, and that's what's going to help our velocity number increase over time. We're also going to have a sprint review. And in the sprint review, we're going to do things like demonstrate the product to the product owner. This is where the change works really well. We know that requirements are going to change over time. Because our sprints are only 1 to 4 weeks, it gives us an opportunity to showcase the product to the product owner or the customer and say, is this what you want? And hopefully it is what the customer wants, but maybe it's not. If it's not what the customer wants, then we have time to adapt to that without investing more in a product that the customer is not going to want. Now, during the sprint, we're going to have a stand-up meeting, a daily stand-up meeting, every 24 hours, and we stand up because we want to make sure that the meeting does not run too long and does not hog our time. In the meeting, we're going to talk about what we accomplished since the last stand-up, what we're going to accomplish until the next stand-up, and any blockers that are standing in our way. The Scrum Master, the job of the Scrum Master is to make sure that all of the rules are followed, that team members are standing up, that they're staying on target. Additionally, we're going to have a burn down and a burn up chart. A burn down chart will typically show how many story points we have tackled in this sprint, and it's updated at least daily, if not more frequently. With good electronic software like Jira, it will update this automatically as we move our tasks across the Scrum board. A burn up chart shows how many hours we've spent during this sprint. So, key to this then is the Scrum board, and that's something that we're going to work on together. You see, what we're going to have is a series of stories on the left, and then on the right, we're going to have the individual tasks that are required for that story. So in this case, we have stories with story points, and the tasks are the technical implementations we're going to need to accomplish the story. The tasks are measured in time. No less than 2 hours, no more than 2 days. If it's more than 2 days, we need to break it down into something simpler. If it's less than 2 hours, well, there's typically going to be some kind of overhead, getting your computer started up, waiting for the Windows updates, things like that. So we'll typically just count it as 2 hours. All of the tasks will start in To Do. As we work on them, we're going to move them into In Progress. Then in the Verify step, we'll do something like a code review. After it's met the definition of done, which might be code reviewed, unit tested, automated tested, we're going to move it over to Done. Once all of the tasks for a story are in Done, then the story moves to Done. And at that point, we are going to update our burn down chart. Now, there's a lot of really good software out there that will update these charts automatically, compute velocity automatically, do a lot of good things like that. I mentioned Jira. There are several other options. But if you need a quick and easy one of my favorites is Scrummy.com. So I'm going to come here to Scrummy.com. It's very easy to use. All you have to do is say Scrummy.com and then name your Scrum Board. So for me, I'm going to say 14 FS4045, and you see, in just a moment, it's going to make a brand new Scrum Board for me, and I'm going to bookmark this just to make sure I remember where it is, and now I can start putting tasks on here like Design Welcome Screen, or Design Search Screen, something like that, or let's say Implement. Let's just say Search Screen, even better. Keep it general. Okay, and then I'm going to choose OK. And I'm going to hit the plus, and for the plus I might say something like create our first XHTML page, and I might give that a time of 2 hours. And then I might also say, okay, define web.xml, and again maybe give that 2 hours, and save. We also might want to think of a story for getting our environment set up. And we can continue, and I'll do this in our next recording, but what you'll see is we can define these tasks, and then I might say, okay, well, I'm ready to start working on this, so I'll assign it to me. And then when I do start working on it, I'll move it into In Progress. You see how easy it is to drag over. And then move it into Verify when I'm ready for it to be code reviewed and tested. And then move it over to Done when it meets the definition of done. So a lot more to go on this one, and we will take a look at that in our next video when we start to think of all the tasks that we want to do for our current project. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you.